Hello there. Welcome back to Football Manager and Brighton. We're about to start our fifth season after our second consecutive Premier League title. We won the Carabao Cup, the Community Shield last year, but we did get knocked out of FA Cup and also the semi-final of the Champions League. So hopefully this year we can do something more in those tournaments. But before that, we probably do need a little bit more, not really depth in the squad. We have plenty of depth, but it's mostly talents. We need a little bit more skilled depth. And that's going to happen with time because as these talents of ours develop, they are going to become more and more skilled and potentially, as I say, fill up that kind of skilled depth that we need. But we might see some moves in the transfer window this year. We do have a bunch of players that we are planning to sell, and as a result, uh, we might end up with a decent chunk of money to spend and potentially pick up some really interesting talents. Now, two talents that has developed very well is Monaghan. Unsurprisingly, he's becoming very good already as an 18-year-old, but he has a couple of months before he becomes 19. But he still has plenty of potential that he can develop here. So looking forward to seeing how he's going to be looking in a year. And we also have Asabal, who came in at the start of last season, or basically a year ago, and has also developed incredibly well. Looking forward to seeing how he turns up as well. But at this point, he's basically already kind of establishing himself as the replacement for Mitoma here, who is starting to become rather old. I say 29 years old. That isn't super old, but at the same time, it is getting close to the point where we are going to consider cashing in on his value if we can. So we'll have to see exactly how that plays out. Where exactly is he? Am I blind? There he is. He's actually marked. He is 29 years old. He has a contract for 3 more years, so we still have plenty of time to play around with that. But generally, it will be. We'll see what we can do here. Paolo is also the goalkeeper talent. Hopefully, he'll get a little bit more playing time this year. Didn't get too much playing time last year because we were in a pretty intense title fight until the last 3 games because Arsenal kind of bottled it. But this year, we'll be working a little bit more on giving Stephen Jones, Paolo, and a bunch of these other talents a little bit more playing time. And hopefully, not enough playing time that it affects the league. But we're also going to be trying to kind of sell players like Szymanski, like Baldassani, players who've kind of reached their potential and are good squad options. But I'd rather have these squad options be players like Estevao and basically players that are getting very close to becoming squad players, talents that we can hopefully race into even better players. So Red Listen here, being a faithful servant was pretty cheap, been pretty good to have. But honestly, I think we've reached a point right now where he kind of have outlived his usefulness. We have the same here with kind of Skelly. Young talent can definitely be a squad player, but we'll see what we do. He does have a pretty low wage, and interestingly enough, he hasn't actually complained about that at a single time. So I'm kind of tempted to keep him just because of that. But as you might expect, we're going to have a lot of transfer this year. And I just want to talk quickly because I realize I haven't actually talked much about this on how I do transfers. I do trust my scouting center to give me a bunch of choices here. You can see that we're already at 100 remaining. This usually fills out up in a week or two with the current scouting setup that we have. And also here we have our transfer budget, 75 million, still wage budget of 70k. That's going to change pretty quickly because we do have some future transfers coming in pretty soon. Fadi, Uedrago, Dalev, Dalevedov, who's actually already a squad player and really good, even as a 17-year-old. This guy's actually kind of insane. But he's going to be coming in January and basically take over as midfield squad player. Biddy, and it's basically going to be a squad option. Probably just going to be here to be sold in January or next year. Ibanez is going to be a little bit of a strength in defense, but as you can see here, his rating has been a little bit downgraded, but I think he'll be a nice option to have. We'll have to see if we give him a chance or if we give Felipe a chance. We do have some squad option in defense, but we also have a lot of defensive talent, so might have gone a little bit too far here on these transfers, but they are what they are. And the transfer last year, again, is made basically just talents with the exception of Szymanski and Scalvini. And Scalvini has actually done fairly decent here his first year. He isn't super good, honestly, but he's definitely our best central defender right now, for sure. So I probably shouldn't be too too critical of him. But yeah, Felipe, Milinkovic-Savic, both of these were brought in kind of to cash in on. So we'll try and do that this transfer window, as both of them are fairly old. And that's going to be the plan. We are probably going to have a list pretty similar to this in the coming season. But we did make a decent chunk of money last year on transfers. But if you take in consideration the transfers in here for 150 million alongside these, then you say that we did go negative on the transfers last year as well. For now, though, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to be scanning through transfer window. As I said, basically, I do trust the scouting center a lot to bring me potential targets, but I also do go through scouted players here to have a look at potential players that I want to pick up, available for transfer, not available for transfer. We we try and pick up those that we find to be of interest and somewhat cheap, like potentially Musiala here. Musiala here could be an option this transfer window if we could get him for kind of cheap because he is a world class player in his position. And honestly, he could be an improvement of a Smith Rowe. Smith Rowe is still good, but he is also getting a little bit on with it. 26 years old, but he is a model citizen, so I kind of want to keep him for mentoring purposes. But you get the idea. We're going to be trying to improve players. He does have a pretty huge wage demand, though, so we'll have to see what we do here. But again, if we can pick him up for 75 million, I think we will. So could definitely see a move happen for this guy, and he's probably potentially going to end up being our most our highest paid player. He can also play left wing, which is basically becoming a bit of a meme here that we have a Brazilian player that can play left wing. But as you can see, he's good at any position. In the midfield, attacking midfield, he'd basically be a very, very good potato because he does have basically every stat for most of these positions, most of the roles that we use above 15 or at the lowest 14 to 19, 17, 16s, 18s. You get the idea. So could definitely be that we try and pick him up if we can get him for cheap. We'll see what we do here. For now, though, I'll get started on the transfer window and we'll see if we can make some good deals. So it looks like we're going to have a fairly interesting transfer window here for a few reasons, mainly the fact that both PSV but also Porto has accepted the release clause in their loan contracts, 58 million, 46 million, and we're also currently discussing with Barcelona a 58 million deal for Baldassani. Honestly, I'm kind of tempted to keep him, but at the same time, we do have some limitations. And currently, the only player that we're really considering bringing in is Cohen de Ward, who's already a pretty decent talent that can do things already, lacking a little bit in passing, but is already looking good and would fit on into the right wing, which is kind of what we're missing. 26 million is his clause, so I'm thinking we're gonna probably get that going, and hopefully here we can both get Torres and Felipe kind of gone here for a total of 100 million, and with Balassani too, that's 160. So we could already have a pretty huge amount of money. Unfortunately, as you can see here, Musiala didn't really go for us. Bayern Munich, he didn't want to discuss a contract, so he went to PSG instead, which is unfortunate, but that is Football Manager. Can't always get the place you're looking for, and that is just how things. That's just how things are. However, Udrago has come to our club now, and he is a fairly decent player who can again fill in that role that we wanted for Musiala. He's not as good, but he is an important player who could still improve. And as such, we could see some pretty vastly, well, not really huge improvement, but some decent improvement. As I said, he can play basically everything, so he does kind of fill that same role. Not as skilled, but he gets the job done. And for 56 million, I'd say that was a pretty good deal. Now we have also got a Fadi in here, and his potentially has been rated a little bit lower. But I do think that we can develop him, and if he doesn't bloom, we can probably sell him and at least recoup the money. Now, I have been told that I'm bad at using loans, and I do agree with that. We probably have bloated the squad here a little bit with too many talents. So I'm currently going to be loaning out a lot of the talents that don't really have what it needs right now to be a regular on the team. Lay, for instance, who's 18. I'm thinking maybe lend out Ortiz as well. We'll have to see. Galedo, Estevao. And we're going to, of course, try and have clauses that allow them to come back if we have a huge spell of injuries, because we kind of do need the extra filler. But with a lot of now potential strengthening of the right wing as well, Drago and, well, what is potentially going to be the cone, we could have a potential chance here of selling, say, Buonanot, who has had not the greatest of development. To be fair, though, he is kind of too bit of a potato-y, but we could also just end up cashing in on him here as his contract is getting 2 years from running out. We're probably also going to end up loaning out, I don't think we're going to loan out Turner and Duff, the Scottish boys. I think we're still going to try and develop them this year. Did get a decent amount of play time last season. Nothing too major, 25 appearances for the main team. But even then, I think it's best to just keep them here and develop them kind of at home. I do want to have some pretty good wingbacks, so we might just invest a little bit more time into developing them this year. Likewise, I think we're going to keep Jones for this season, but Tuxus is probably going to get lent out. But we'll have to see exactly who we end up selling before we go wild on loading our players, because we do need to have a little bit of cover, and I do enjoy having talent as cover unless we can find basically perfect loans where they go to a place that has decent training facilities, things like that. But for the time being, we haven't really done much in terms of transfers. I am still looking for someone good to bring in, but currently we are a little bit on the back foot there. But as I said, if the transfers that we have right now with Felipe, Torres, and also Baldasani here go through, we could see a decent chunk of money. Although some of it is in in installments, like this one, 30 million directly, 30 million in installments, and we have the same here, 22 million in installments. But even then, we're going to end up with a good 110 million, and with the addition of that to the current transfer budget, we are going to be able to buy pretty much anyone we want. So we still have a lot of flexibility, as we do have more players coming in from loan, and potentially here we could see Naipen maybe being sold. We might also just keep him for cover. Skelly, we'll have to see what we do with. And I think that's actually it. So we don't really have too many others coming in from loan, but we probably do need to do a bit of cleaning up here of the main squad, and I do understand that. So let's see how this turns out. All right, we are rapidly moving through the transfer window here. We're about to start the season with a Community Shield against Manchester United, and luckily this time around we have a little bit of a easier start to the season. West Ham, Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, and Newcastle should allow us to live more happily than we did before, at least. And the three friendlies that we had this season, because we went on to uh, basically a, what's it called, training camp, and a lot of friendlies got cancelled as a result of that, and other things clashing. We just did three friendlies; they went well as well, and it's looking good here now. Just the start of the season. October might be a little bit rough here, but I'm honestly looking forward to getting into this next season of ours. Now, in terms of transfers, we're currently trying to pick up Hato here, Joel Hato. He's not anything super special, but he has great physicals. He is decent for positions, and we can basically play him as inverted fullback for alternatives in the strategy. We can play him as a center back, and that would basically also kind of help with fixing our central defense a little bit. We also have some potentially of Liverpool wanting to snatch Bongiorno, so we might end up switching Bongiorno here for Hato, which honestly would be a great deal. I feel like young young player for an old veteran, probably a deal that I would like best. Now, the transfers that we have completed here, we can take a look at them. We brought in a couple more talents here in Matteo Verbist. He is a midfielder talent who can be used as kind of a squad player already. Has decent mentals, decent physicals, and as I said here, if he grows correctly, can be a pretty decent ball-winning midfielder. Basically, taking the role that Neves currently is occupying. We also brought in Bent, who is a 16-year-old, just turned 16, as you can see. And with him being already 1.5 stars and having some decent stats here with potential to passing, things like that, doesn't have the most potential. But with us having basically now 5 well, 4 years now to develop this guy before he turns 18, we could potentially make a proper playmaker out of him, and that's going to be the kind of the idea. But those are the players we brought in, along with the players on free transfer, and we have sold a bunch of them. But before that, there are a couple of other players here that isn't actually shown, mainly Kuan Davad, who is another talent. I know, I can't help myself. This guy has pretty amazing physicals, with the exception of strength, jumping, fitness. I'd say this is pretty good for a guy that just turned 19. He does have some limited potential, honestly. Probably kind of regret buying him. You can actually see on the potential and build here that I did get a little bit fooled, but he too is potentially a squad player, so he could do well. But yeah, I would assume all of you are just like, you need to bring in someone who isn't a talent for once, and I can agree with that. However, we have brought out, excuse me, we have sold Ronnie Gorman, who is pretty talented, but this is basically the peak limit of his. He's currently playing for Everton under 21s. We also have a 50% clause on next sale, so I thought it was just better to let him go. Now, in terms of who's actually gone out the gates here, 245 million, we have allowed a lot of players to go on loan. So people who's gone for free are just talents without potential. Baldasani has gone to Barcelona. Lewis Skelly has gone to Juventus for a potential of 71 after he's played some games. We've had Galeto, Mitchell, again, a bunch of players that just go out on loan, the talents. Szymanski has gone to Real Madrid for 45 million. Kind of happy with that. Felipe did not agree to his loan deal, and neither did Torres. So we ended up selling him fairly cheaply here to Manchester United. But honestly, I think this is a good deal for us, even if he went to United. Unless, of course, he ends up scoring the match winner here in the Community Shield. Betlison has finally been sold to Benfica. He too has potential 41, which is most likely going to be filled because the 8 million is over 10 games. Basically, every game he plays for Benfica, we get 800k. Once he's played 10 games, full transfer value. Other than that, Ortiz, Clark, Price, Torres, Tuxes, and Fuentes. All these have just been loaned out for experience. Facundo Torres is a bit of an interesting loan fee here, as you see. Monthly loan cost of 2.5 million, a future fee of 31. And there's also another addition to that. Mandatory future fee of 47.5. So take the playing monthly fee. In addition to that, he is going to basically make us around 60 to 70 million, depending on how he does. But Manchester United has picked him up as well. And honestly, I'd say this is a pretty good payout that we finally get for him. It's probably going to be more than what we would have gotten if they had pulled the move total. So yeah, this loan alone is going to bring in more money than if we brought him in for. Of course, we paid a salary for these 2 years, but I think we are running a pretty good bargain with finally getting him out of the door. So that is what's happened so far. We have a future transfer again, Dalevadov, who is, as I said already, a bit of a squad player. Dude is 17 years old and already amazing. Like, this guy is actually comparable to some of our, like, if we compare him to Milinkovic Savic, he's a little bit behind in the aerial, the attacking, vision, physical, and defending, but he isn't bad. This is a 17-year-old, remember? And if we compare him to, say, who else do we want to have a look at? Nijpen? You can see that he's already basically better to some degree than Halstead Nijpen. And again, he's 3 years younger. So this man could become a bit of a monster, particularly if we use him as a playmaker. He already has passing, he has technique, he has decisions, he has flair, off the ball, teamwork, vision. If we say that he gets +2 to +3 in all of these stats, he's going to be a monster. And his physicals aren't lacking either. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how this guy's going to develop. Of course, the fact that he can play forward and midfielder kind of devalue some of his stats. But even then, I think we can make a really, really good player out of this guy once he actually arrives here. So with that, we do have a few concerns for the current staff. Paolo and Restus are both injured, but Restus should be able to play the game today. Could have been really, really bad. Patterson is going to be our main right defender. Turner, our main talent, main backup. Alongside Diamanda, he can actually play right back to a good level as well. We have Kerkez, we have Barco on the left wing, or left defender, alongside Turner, or Duff. So we're kind of well covered there. And of course, we still have a bunch of central defenders. We kept Steven Jones. We send the rest out on loans to gain experience. And of course, we also have Scalvini, who's basically just our central defender. In the midfield, we have Neves, Milinkovic Savic, Archie. Naipan is still here. We have Barco can play midfield if we need to. But as you can see, we have a lot of cover for the midfield itself. We also have a cover now for the attacking right, attacking left, center. We'll have to see exactly what we do with some of these talents. Esteval, I think we're going to try and cash in on him if we can. He is 20 years old. He doesn't really show any great signs of developing. So if we can take the 30 million we paid for him and turn it into, in this case, around 50 to 60 million, which is probably a little bit too much to hope for, that would be massive. But I think we are getting to the point where we probably will sell him. We'll try and develop Fadi because, again, he has pretty amazing stats himself. So if we can develop him too right, we might have a really a forward here that could be better than Ferguson. So far, I'm very happy with how this transfer window has gone. We sold a lot of players. We haven't actually brought any big ones in, except for Udrago. But we've cut down on the size of the squad quite significantly. And that is going to be the big thing here, that we've been able to cut down on the squad, because it'll give talents more playtime. It'll give everyone more playtime. And if we need to, we can just recall someone from loan, worst case scenario. So I'm liking how this is. We're going to keep Christie, Sturman, and Bent here within the squad for the time being. I'm not going to be sending them out on loan until they are 18. But they'll be playing for under 18, under 21, and also be given a few game starts and substitutions every now and again for the games. So that's going to be the play here. We'll have to see what we do with everything else. Currently, we're in a pretty decent position financially, but the wage budget is still kind of getting bloated. We're up to 3.4 million. I think we started with about 1.5 million, so we've increased our wage budget over the last 4 years by about 2 million a week. That's a bit problematic, but it is what it is. And as you can see here, we do have some scoutings available, but generally here, I'm a little bit unsure who I want to pick up. I'm kind of tempted to pick up Takamoto here, just to loan him out and try and develop him. He is Japanese. We do, as you can see here, just bringing him in could generate 1.7 million extra. We do have a club in Japan that we are affiliated with. So potentially here, bringing him in, racing him, could be a financially sound decision for several different reasons. And if we take a look at his age here, he just recently turned 19. But I think we're going to probably still have a bit of a hard time developing him due to the fact that he has low adaptability. So we'll have to see. He does have a decent personality, though. That should have some professionalism behind it. So hopefully we can still maybe make a deal here. A little bit unsure because we have been buying a lot of talents. Currently, we can bring in him and one more because we get Daladov in January. So I'll have to see what is available to us. The shortlist is here. It's full of people. So we'll have to see exactly what we do. Fresneda here might look like a very good option, honestly, to bring in as a wingback. But the main problem with him is the fact that susceptible to injuries, and he hates big matches. So could be a decent, can actually be a very decent, what's it called, squad player. But we could also try and bring him in and try and sell him. That's the thing. Because Fresneda here, compared to Patterson, has half his value. So if you bring him in for 45, we could probably make some money off of that. And potentially also consider not really upgrading per se, because Patterson is still decent. Consistent, enjoys big matches, so he's really, really good. Model citizen. But we might bring in Fresneda as basically, again, kind of to flip, which sounds horrible to put it like that. But he does have value, far more value than the transfer value would suggest here. And keeping him for a season and selling him could potentially end up with tons of money. So I'll make some considerations here. We have 200 million of the transfer budget available to us, so it's not like we are struggling for money. There are also a bunch of talents that I could potentially try and pick up, but as you can see here, Endrick, well, Endrick in this case, or Cosmo for that reason, but basically any top player that I would want to bring in here, it's going to be costing us between 200 to sometimes 300 million. So most of these guys are just so prohibitively expensive that I'd rather go for the second choice, the third choice, and then kind of work from there. And Hedl apparently is unhappy with his current situation, but yeah. We've also actually unsettled Hado here, so I'm trying to get him for cheaper than 101 million. That's actually a clause. So we'll try and fight that over the course of this month. Hopefully no one else gets involved, but it would be a good pickup. So yeah, I think that is everything I wanted to kind of sort here. We'll be jumping into the Manchester United game. Let's see how we do. As you probably saw, the game against Manchester United in the Community Shield didn't go very well. We ended up having to take that to penalties. Honestly, I don't think we deserve to win. And we have seen a very concerning development with our strategy over the course of this month. It's been a pretty good month. We only drew one game against Nottingham, but we have been very leaky backwards, and that is a bit of an issue. I think this basically means that the AI is more than less figured out the strategy, which means that I'm probably going to have to sit down here, try and think of a different strategy for us to use, which is probably going to be moving the attacking midfielder center into a defensive midfielder role, kind of change things around a little bit to give us another alternative that should still be a decent strategy and hopefully allow us to continue our winning ways. But 9 goals here, well, 10 goals if you include the Manchester United game, it's a little bit too much to allow into the wrong side of the goal, to put it like that. So yeah, we have been scoring pretty much ourselves as well, but it's not a good look. Let's put it that way. That we're this leaky backwards, and this is even with our main goalie for most of those games. Well, Xiao Paulo has played some of them, but as you can see, Arrest has played the majority. So it is worrisome. Could also just be that we played too few friendlies, didn't get enough match sharpness, which could also be an issue. But uh, it is a concern, and it is a concern that we will deal with. Now, in terms of our transfers, we're currently looking at getting Ilton. He is a little bit on the old side. He's 19. But he does have an interesting set of skills here, and particularly his crossing and dribbling is already fairly high. Decent first touch, passing isn't too bad. So generally what we're going to do with this guy is just pick him up, lend him out, and worst case scenario, just flip him for money. But if he develops, we'll probably put him into our team. So it's a bit of an interesting one. He does have some decent stats to start with. 17 acceleration, balance, agility, so he could potentially be an aggressive wing back and do well at that. As you can see, our transfer budget here isn't the highest ever, 138 million remaining. So we did end up actually splurging on two players here, Unsworth and Hatto. So Hatto basically complements our defense, and we now have basically the main defense here with Hatto and Scalvini. To be fair, I probably overpaid a little bit for him, but my logic here is pretty straightforward and simple. He's consistent. He has a decent personality, or at least an okay personality. He does well, and he can play left back if we need to. And more than anything, he's young. So worst case scenario, I should be able to get most, if not more than this money, at least most of it back if things go bad. Now, Unsworth here is another interesting fellow. Turned 18 in April, and he has 16 finishing, first touch, technique, pace, agility, and generally looks to be a fairly interesting fellow. He does lack the mental aspect, but he's also another one that we're gonna just bring in and then loan out. And even if he doesn't develop into a proper first team player, he's probably gonna be able to at least make up the well, I'll at least be able to get my money's worth back for him. I'm pretty sure about that. So interesting prospect that we have picked up here. He doesn't have any adaptability issues, so we're probably going to try and load him out into the league. He's also professional, which is a huge reason why we picked him up. Professional helps a ton with player development. Basically, they develop quicker because they are professional. They take you more seriously. So that is good. But yeah, that is basically the transfers. Three talents, kind of what we're getting used to. But we now have kind of an overload in the defensive center defensive, and we'll have to see if we actually end up selling some of those players in January or the next transfer window, or basically next season's transfer window, which probably is going to happen. But yeah, Dove is also coming in still. I'm really looking forward to this guy. Looks very interesting. And just want to go through what we've done here. We have actually sold Naipen to Bayern. That's really the only thing else that has happened except for loans. Maybe sold him a little bit on the cheap side, but honestly, he didn't really fit in too well. To be fair, he can be very, very good, but at the same time, I decided that uh, we're just gonna gamble on someone else. He is getting on the older side. I have more interesting talents, is the thing. He is Norwegian, so I was tempted to keep him just for that. But we are going to be a little bit more cynical, a little bit more ruthless here, and try and develop a top flight team. We're kind of still lacking a bunch of players for that. So while our first team can be very, very good, the depth is kind of questionable. As you can see, a lot of the depth here is still just talents that can hopefully develop. Viti is one of those that have become, surplus. I'd say both Bonjinono and Ibanez probably too. Although both of them might be a little bit better than Diamanda. Diamanda is just younger. That's the thing. So all three of these might very well end up being sold in the near future, and we'll have Jones be the backup, Hato, Scalvini the main centre backs, Diamanda main kind of backup, and then we have Jones as kind of filler because he is growing. He's growing slowly, but he is growing, and potentially he could become a very, very good player in a few years' time. So that's going to be the plan here. Nothing too major happened during the transfer window. But as I said, we might end up switching the strategy up here a little bit, like something like, let's see, we put an advanced playmaker on attack, place down I don't know what I want back here, an anchor, maybe, and that would allow these guys to be a little bit more aggressive, or even a what do halfback that could work too. Just place a halfback here. He'll slot down in between the defenders. Attack that could work. Uh, do I want to? I don't know what I want here then. A box to box Masala. I don't know. We'll have to figure it out exactly how we want to do it. But we're probably going to switch over to something like this. And as I said, I'm going to look over the strategy, see what we can figure out. But basically, if this one starts to fail massively, because it's the one that we've used, I have been tweaking it a little bit every now and again. But if it starts failing, we will be switching probably over to a 4-1-2 or 4-3-3 different setup, basically. So we'll see what we end up with, but that is the plan going forwards. Before I forget, we have another team that is suffering a bit of a collapse at the moment, and that is Manchester City. Now, to describe just how badly they are collapsing, I'm going to show you the schedule here. And they lost 8-0 against Tottenham after winning 6-2 against Wolves. That is one thing that happened. They did get they had no shots on goal, not no anything. They had 50% possession, but they just couldn't get to the Tottenham box. Andrew with a 5.5, Foden with a 5.5, Silva not doing well. Then they demolish a couple of Sepsi in the Conference League qualifying, and then they lose to Everton before they then again get demolished by Fulham. And I haven't actually had a look at this one yet, but this is basically the same thing. They're just playing a little bit too weird, I guess I could say, because they're getting demolished by Fulham. That's not something I would really expect. Let's be honest here. Um, yeah, that's a bit of a surprise. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they're gonna do this month, and particularly seeing that we're gonna be facing them in just a month's time. That could really, really spell well for us. But right now, Manchester City, if they keep this up, could potentially very well be a relegation, potential here. And if we take a look at the XG so far, they kind of deserve to be where they are, honestly. So yeah, we'll have to see exactly how this season kind of behaves. We're still overperforming on our X goals. It's kind of been our theme, but yeah, let's see how this first half of the season goes. I've been spending a lot of time right now, so I think we'll just sum it all up. There's nothing really major that is going to happen over the course of the next few months here. It's the regular stuff, the Champions League phase. We're facing Sevilla, Real, Benfica, Sturmgrass, Ajax, PSG. We can get revenge from last year, Rangers, and Cervena Zvezda. So I think we'll be able to at least make it to the playoffs again. That should be no problem. And I believe we're facing Aston Villa in the Carabao Cup, so we could have an upset there. But generally, I think the first half of the season here is going to be pretty smooth sailing for us, unless of course we suffer a bunch of injuries. And I'm happy with the addition of Hato. I'm happy with the addition of Ue Draogo, and I think both of them are going to be kind of vital here in this season. So getting two young players like this in, I'm very, very happy with. So here we are, towards the end of the first half of the season. I'm slightly addicted, and I've been playing the save on my laptop as well, which ended up with me not recording most of the second half of the first half of the season. But we'll be going over what we've been doing. We have had a fairly good run so far. We are square with Arsenal in terms of points there. 19 games played. We have a way better goal difference, and we have a game here on Arsenal. Basically, we could be leading by 3 points if we beat Bournemouth, and well, everyone else that we have to deal with over the course of the next few games here. So let's have a look at how this first half of the season has gone. Last which checked in was the end of transfer window where we beat Luton at the end of the Carabao Cup third round. We have had an incredibly good run where we've only drew what is it, 4 games? Yeah, we only drawn 4 games and lost two so far. The one of the draws is Real Madrid in the Champions League, and we lost towards City and Chelsea. City did have a pretty horrible start to the season, but they pulled themselves a little bit together. But honestly, we've had a incredibly good run here so far, I dare say. And as you can see, the draws and the losses, with the exception of Real Madrid, have all come in the Premier League, meaning that we are through in basically the Champions League and also the Carabao Cup quarterfinal here against Crystal Palace. So we won six, drawn five. Sorry, played six, won five, drawn 1 game so far in the Champions League, which puts us top of the table. And I'm pretty sure we're going to go get direct qualifying done here, because the other teams that we'll be facing are Rangers and Savannah Zvezda. So unless something spectacular happens, we should be winning both these games. So we should directly qualify to the round of 16. But yeah, we've had a fairly good season, I dare say. We've had a fairly dominant performance in most games. This one is a good example. As you can see, 18 shots versus 2, 277 XG versus 0.24. And that's generally been the gist here. But as you can see here, we've actually done some changes to the tactics. We do still use this one, but it's proven less and less effective as the season has been going. We were kind of starting to see it last season too, that people, well, starting to figure it out. We were struggling more, 1-0 wins, and it was not a good time, let's put it like that. Then we switched over to this one. This is a lucky game though. We were not supposed to win 5-1. But as you can see here, this is basically the first game with this new strategy, and it's working out fairly well so far. I'll probably be tweaking this one too as we're going, and I'm also planning to make probably something else like this. I'm thinking moving midfielders up like that, going for a something like this. It's going to be pretty okay, I think. We'll have to see exactly what we end up with, and I want to make it more of a narrow focus on the center kind of strategy as our third one. But so far, with the option that we have here, this could definitely work out. I'm also considering turning these guys into more of a winger support role, and turning this guy back to support, as well as maybe changing the box-to-box midfielder into something else like a Masala. And I'll have to see if we maybe actually make another deep line playmaker. I'm a little bit unsure exactly what we want to do with that strategy, but it has been working very, very well so far. We're on a great pace here to take another league title, and honestly, can't really complain too much because, well, we've let in very, very few goals here. Only Newcastle and Chelsea, I believe, have let in less, so we can be happy with how things have gone. City is still not great, let's be honest here, but they have recovered somewhat after that disaster they had early in the season. But yeah, 8-0 against Tottenham, 5-0 against Fulham. That's not great. Those are not great results. Let's put it like that. So we've had some good results here. We've had a lot of 1-goal wins. You can see that against Fulham, Everton, Brentford, Liverpool. And that's been a little bit of a worry, because that is basically what made us focus more on different strategies. We've also had some draws and the 2 losses. But so far, I'm very, very happy with how things have gone. As for transfers, I believe we have a couple of future transfers planned. Just want to show it really quick here. Levidov is coming in now in January, and he's already a really, really good player. He's probably going to take a midfield position, which means that we're probably going to be doing some selling. He's already a standard player, can improve a lot. And honestly, he does seem to be a pretty good pick. Fresneda, we bring him in on the right back. He is, in theory, slightly better than Patterson. Seems like changed their minds on that. Patterson maybe developed a little bit. But the idea here is also kind of that we're bringing him in to flip him because of the big matches, because of susceptibility to injuries. So we'll have to see if we can actually flip him for a decent chunk of money. Ailton is kind of the same thing. I don't expect this guy to kind of develop into a monster. Let's put it like that. But if we can develop him into a fullback, 13 and 14 crossing. Sorry, not fullback, a wingback. 13 and 14 crossing as a starting point is massive. This guy could become really, really interesting to mess around with, really. And that's the thing. He's lacking a little bit on the defensive aspects, but as I said, if he develops well, could definitely become a bit of a monster. And Penna here is a little bit of a weird one. Basically, I mainly bought him because he's cheap. He's still a good talent though, according to our scouts. But basically, the main thing here is that he's cheap, and that's gonna benefit us. He's not coming until the summer though. So yeah, in terms of the squad itself, we'll have to see what we do. We do have a bunch of players on loans currently, and for the most part, they've been given playing experience. But Clark here has not been, so we're probably going to recall him now in January, and then set up either another loan or even just try and sell him because he's not really developing, and he's getting very close to that 20 years old. So if we can get the cash back at the very least, I would be very happy with that. Now, a player that is developing very rapidly and is probably going to be taking over Mitoma's role is Galeto here. He's already rather good, let's just put it like that. And he is basically at this point kind of the same level that Mitoma is. But what I'm seeing for the left attack midfielder role for the near future of our team is that we're going to put Asebel, Galeto, and maybe Barco and Monaghan. It's kind of the backups there. We also have Udrago on the right side with kind of Smith Rowe and Bargy for the most part. We'll have to see what we do here because we might actually end up selling Bargy and Buonanotte in the near future and kind of replace them with potential talents because Bargy has basically reached his point. He's still rather good, don't get me wrong. He has the stats necessary. He usually also performs above a 7 average, so kind of happy with him. Buonanotte, though, is a different story. We're probably going to try and sell him. He's done well this season, 747, but he's only played 6 games. He's been injured, and he generally has injury problems. I found it doesn't say that he has injury problems, but he hasn't been doing super well. That's the main problem. He does fit a few, minimum squad registration rules and things like that. But generally, I don't think he's going to develop to his full potential. And if he's going to basically keep on suffering like he did last year, just 6 games, this year, just 5 games from the injuries, I think it's better to cash in on him while we can. And if we are to renegotiate his contract after this season, it's going to go up by a lot. I believe he wants 180k. So with that in mind, I'm thinking that we might just sell and cash in on him, even though he still has some potential. The age is a bit of a restriction for that, basically. Barco, you can kind of say the same for him, honestly, but the thing with Barco is he can play midfielder, he can play left wing, he can play defender, and he usually does all of these fairly good. And with that in mind, considering all the places he can play, he is a really good squad player, honestly. So I'd rather take Barco at this point over one or not. So we'll have to see what we do there with terms of transfers. And in terms of the squad here with the defenders, because we do have a lot of them, I'm thinking that Vidi and Bongiorno are probably gonna be. We're probably gonna try and sell both of these this window, and Ibanez maybe as well. We'll have to see exactly what we do with that. But yeah, going forwards, there's going to be a lot of interesting changes potentially. I'm keeping the Irvin Bent, basically the younger squad in the team for the time being until they turn 18. Because currently I can't actually get any loan deals for them. That would be, well, very beneficial the way that I see it. So it's better to give them a few games at Premier League level when I have the opportunity, I feel. Give them a couple of subs, and we'll see how their growth is. Vardy is actually settling fairly well. He does have growth on his stats here. Shame that he is looking to get some jumping reach here, but have bad heading. But he could definitely become a huge challenge as well. He's still just 18 years old. Paolo, not developing as quickly as we want as a second goalie, but we have a bunch of interesting talents there, and particularly Monaghan. He does have some down arrows right now, but honestly, I wouldn't worry about that. He's gonna regain his stats for sure. Still just 19 years old, and still 8 months until he turns 20, so plenty of time to develop. Asebel, same thing. He probably will end up, as a very, very good dribbler on that left wing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how he too does develop. He too very really really young. Duff, left defender, left wing back, is also developing really nicely. 19 fitness, acceleration, pace, stamina. Dude's turning into a real machine. Lacking a little bit on the defensive aspects, kind of, but his crossing, his dribbling is also going up. So that's basically kind of what we want in our fullbacks. So I can't be too upset there, honestly. Jones does have some problems with injuries, so we'll have to see how he develops. He's also well, he's performing well in training, but we do need him to become a little bit better. Let's put it like that. But honestly, so far I'm really happy with how our talents are developing. We do have those guys out on loan, which are helping out too. And we'll have to see what we do here, particularly with the older players. Milinkovic Savic is probably going to get sold. We have interest from Saudi. He isn't. He's still probably one of our better midfielders. Let's be honest. He's a really really good midfielder. He also has decent jumping and heading, so he can be a threat on corners. But I'm thinking that we're going to cash in on him. He's 32 years old. He's going to be 33 come the end of February. So I'm thinking we cash in on him. We give Daladov his spot and basically allow him to develop into hopefully a rather good player. Now Mitoma is seeing some loss of stats now, mainly due to injuries, but also the fact that he's getting older. He also doesn't have too long left on his contract, 2 years after the season. So while he is a huge force, a huge talent, huge basically fans love him kind of player, if we get the right offer, we're probably going to end up selling him so that we can basically, as I said, have a Sebel and also in time Galetto take over that left wing. As you can see, the fans love him. So he also generally plays very, very well. But I kind of want to focus on the future and we might change how the wings play. So we'll see. We might keep him for another season. We might not. Again, depends on what we get in terms of offers. I don't really have much loyalty towards my players, I know. So I might be a little bit too ruthless towards the old generation and a little bit too lenient towards the younger. I think that is the best way to describe my playstyle in Football Manager. But yeah, we'll have to see how we do. Bongiorno is probably gonna go out. Smith Rowe, I still think he has a purpose here. He does have a very high salary though, so we'll have to see what we do. Once his current contract runs out, we're probably gonna end up selling him. To be fair, but yeah, that is basically what I'm planning to do this next transfer window. We'll see how that plays out. And rest is here too, becoming rather good. Still has a little bit to go on, so hopefully can reach that the last bit of potential. Kerkez, honestly, we're probably going to end up offering him a new contract at this point because I like to keep him. He doesn't have the best performances, but he is fairly stable. And worst case scenario, we can probably sell him for money. Basically, I have set an asking price for him because I'm trying to kind of tempt him into getting, interest shown elsewhere. And so for some reason, that makes them forget about contract worries, but hasn't worked as well as I hoped. So yeah, bit of a long summary here, but that is basically how things are. In terms of what we might do though, if we end up selling, basically, let me put it this way: if we end up selling Ibanez, Bongiorno, and VD, then we might be left a little bit open on the central defender role. And as such, I'm thinking of actually bringing in the expensive one, which is a weird way of calling of saying things. But I'm thinking of bringing in Kaima Kamis, which is gonna cost us 88 million. That's his. That's his clause. But I think that wouldn't be a terrible idea. He does have adaptability problems, but his potential, double with his already kind of skill level, which is fairly decent, I'm thinking he might not be a terrible idea to bring in. He is 19 years old. He's going to turn 20 at the end of the season, but still, I think it would be a good investment. Although you could argue a better investment for 88 million would be to buy someone who's already a 5-star. But he is a consistent performer, right decisions, intelligence on the pitch. So I'm thinking this guy could be, become a important part of the squad. And if we bring him in, we basically have Hato, we have Jones if he develops, but basically Hato, Scalvini, and then Kamakames as our main three that we're going to be kind of rotating. And then we have Jones here potentially as the talent that will be racing behind the three of them. So, do have some plans. If they're going to work, that's a different thing. And I'm also a little bit unsure what I want to do with the Amanda here because he too is not playing great. He's also from Ivory Coast, Ivorian. And with that, he does go to the Africa Championship and misses out usually a couple of months a year. So, with how he is and where he is at, he is a good squad option right now, but we might also end up selling him too if we get the correct offer, mainly due to, again, just to give talents more playing time. So, it's a bit of a weird situation. The reason why I'm comfortable selling him too in that case, if we bring Kamai Kamis, is that we have basically two main uh, defenders in Hato and Scalvini. Then we have the backup in Kamikamis, and in this case, what kind of fun, Stephen Jones. But we also have Turner and Dove, who both can kind of play central defender if they have to. So it's not all terrible. We still have cover, so I wouldn't be too worried. The thing that I'm mostly concerned about now is actually our midfield. So Milinkovic Savic is probably going to get sold, but we're bringing in Daladov as a replacement. And I think that is an acceptable trade, in my honest opinion. We have Bent here, but he's a talent for, far into the future. Just 16 years old. Barco can play midfield if we need to. So I'm not too worried about our midfield with Gray, with Neves, with Scalvini needing can play defensive midfield if we need to as well. And we can also, of course, move Smith Rowe down. So our midfield is actually pretty stable. The main thing here is if we have injuries on Udrago, Baji, and Mitoma at the same time, like we kind of have had now, that could be a little bit of an issue. But honestly, we're kind of fine. What we might do, because of the amount of strikers that we have, Ferguson, Monaghan, Vardy, Unsua 2 here, can actually play striker to a pretty good degree. He's lacking some composure decisions, but he's already 16 finishing, 16 first touch, dribbling. So we do have a lot of potential for players that can take on that striker role. And with that in mind, that is what I'm trying to experiment now with, setting up a two strike strategy. Now, this is still in development, so I'm not exactly sure what we're going to end up with, but as you might imagine, it could end up working out as a good third choice because we are starting to get kind of figured out with this strategy in particular. We're struggling to get through defense. We are having worse stats than we do with other strategies against similar-ish opponents. So our strategies do need a little bit of refinement, a little bit of changing to make sure that we don't get complacent, basically. But yeah, so that is the plan going forwards. We're still in everything. We have the Premier League, and I probably did spend a lot of time now going through this, but it's been a while since I took a little bit of a break and gave a full rundown of where our team is at and what we're planning. And as I said here, the short list here is basically just for talent. We'll have to see what we do. We are considering picking up Gavrilovic here, who is 17 years old, but he's also one of those midfielders that can play all three roles. Already has decent stats, well, defensive side that is. But even then, this guy already has decent stats, just 2 stars, could improve a lot, cheap, cheap as well. So that is another reason why we're considering bringing him in. But we have also kind of embraced loans a bit more this season. So I'm not worried about bringing in more talent because we are using the development center here, using the loans to try and develop our players a bit more. But yeah, we'll have to try and make sure that we don't get bad loans like we have for Danny Clark, for Esteval. Excuse me. And as I said here, Esteval is probably one that we're going to try sell for as much money as we can. That's going to be the goal. And price here is also probably a misbuy. We've spent 25 million for him, but his casual personality has definitely had a negative effect on his development. And we'll have to see. We might actually, once he comes back from this loan, try and cash in on him as quickly as possible to try and get some of that money back. So we'll see how that plays out. Cohen the Ward here is a right winger too that we brought in, who's kind of interesting as well. Already fairly quick, had some flair, some Decision Determination is actually developing well here on loan at Hoffenheim. So, yeah, we'll have to see exactly how things go. But Tux's not really developing super well, honestly. So again, we'll just go over how these players have done once they come back. Mitchell is unfortunately probably not going to be good enough for our team, unfortunately. But we'll have to see exactly how well he develops. But as you can see, he's basically about to tick into 20 years old. So probably gonna be selling some of these talents, but generally buying in at least the 6 talents we're allowed to from other countries, as well as talents from our homelands, talents from England. We should be able to flip these guys to make some money and loan them out for their development. I think that's going to be the plan going forwards. We're also doing a bit of a. I usually do this before every transfer window. I go through my staff and see what we're missing. In this case, we're missing a bunch of under 18 coaches. Should probably have filled these numbers up earlier. As you can see, we're missing 6 of them. Missing a performance analyst, a sports scientist. But I am going through that, trying to fix it right now. And we actually found a couple of interesting regions that were willing to take the job. There's not the best determination discipline, so actually nothing special with that in mind. But this guy's a little bit better, lacking that discipline though. But as you can imagine, picking up these guys as under 18 coaches is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. So I'm happy with that. And yeah, that is basically it, I believe. Well, as I said, we'll have to see exactly how we go forward with selling our players. But honestly, right now, it feels like the squad is maybe a little bit bloated. But at the same time, we have to consider the fact that we do have a pretty busy period coming up. But as you can see here, Ibanez, Barco, mostly being subbed, and Baji, Bent, haven't really been able to play these guys at all. Bitty hasn't really gotten any starts. So, as you can see, we do need to put in a little bit extra work, but at least these guys do play under 18 games, keeps them sharp, so they can pop in anytime we need to, really. But yeah, I think that is it for this part of the season. Hope you've enjoyed, even though I did kind of skip out a lot of it. Thank you for watching, and hope to see you around next time. Bye bye.